can do if they want to publish or if they want to produce a film. Because
absolutely, and I'm one of your first fans here because I got a film to produce. I've already run into the whole Hollywood Jewish clique there, and they don't like me much because I do talk about Israel, I do talk about the Palestinians, and and I have people from all over the world here.
It's interesting you should mention that, because I actually make a very significant differentiation between the Israeli government, which seems to have a thing against which seems to have a very interesting approach to handling the Palestinians, which probably aren't going to be going away. It's not very functional, is it? And people of the Jewish faith. It seems like an entirely different thing, because otherwise I'm responsible for what I come from the United States, and I don't want to be painted with a brush that everything that the United States does is something that I support or I believe in, because I don't. And so I kind of tend to say I don't like the Israeli government, and I don't like multinational corporations that violate human rights. So when we start getting down to like naming people and holding them. Problem is, Jews, when you say the word Jews, you're speaking about individuals. If you talk about Israel, I don't know, it seems like that's a fairer thing to say, because the Israeli government really does do some pretty strange things. But I'm not necessarily sure, and in fact, I know I'm 100% positive that there are many Jews that are really pretty unenthusiastic and are pretty aggressively trying to make the Israeli government stop doing those things. And in fact, some of my friends are personally involved in saying the United States support for Israel is unwarranted based on the fact that they treat the Palestinians so badly.
Well, it's not just that. Israel was set up as a safe haven for the Rothschilds. It was set up as a colony, and these Zionists, these elitists, they hide behind the Jewish people. And basically they do the same thing to the Christians. I'm a Judeo-Christian. That's pretty much the same thing as going, well, according to the Talmud, that makes me a satanic Christian. Mm-hmm. So it's again we're getting the divide and conquer. The Muslims versus the Jews versus
exactly. And that's the thing. I guess my point. That's what I don't want to play into. In other words, the reason I'm always very careful about talking about groups of people of any kind is because really it's either the individuals that's the problem, or it's an organization of people who willfully choose to do a thing that are the problem. So when I look at the United States and I say, okay, here's the thing, I don't know if we should be using drones to blow up people we don't know. All those terrorist toddlers we accidentally apparently keep hitting in Afghanistan. That's a bit troubling to me. I'm not sure I think we should be using drones.
I don't think we should be using weapons of war. We basically, the bankers finance, the whole bankers' creed is to finance both sides of every conflict. And they're sending our children to war. I mean, to me it's really, and what my novels were about 40 years ago, Nancy, is the rights of the individual.
Right.
If you want to smoke pot, if you want to shoot heroin, just go sit over in that corner there so we can dispose of the body easily.
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than putting them in jail and spending $50,000 to put them into a work camp.
Right.
I mean, what's the difference between that and what they did with the Jews, putting them into work camp?
Right. Exactly. So I guess that's my point. I think that's exactly my point. Is that I am a big believer in human rights and civil rights, and a big believer in protecting those. And in fact, again, apparently you managed to believe in the Constitution and have been able, and are now a right-wing demagogue. And I used to be a libertarian, and apparently I'm now a progressive Democrat. Who knew? And look at Ron Paul. He can't even get elected because he wants to talk about the Constitution. Who knew? That first 10 amendments, some of us are just really way too passionately involved with them. Like maybe there's just so many things that are just amusing about that. So, and the thing that's important to me is that I really do like the Constitution. I think a lot of people do. And I think if we focus on the fact that people do have human rights, they do have civil rights, and that governments can't take them away, and that people have them worldwide, the Declaration of Independence actually says that all people are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. It doesn't say all Americans. It says all people, and I believe that.
That's right.
And I think the Bible actually says the same thing. All men are brothers. So it's really kind of significantly uncool to have your government, or people who say they're your government, decide to go over to Iraq, telling you that there are weapons of mass destruction, and telling you that that this guy, participated in 9/11, and telling you all kinds of other strange stories, and decide to attack that. It's not done. And I think the thing is, there's many people that are inside the United States government who feel exactly the same way, actually, because how many people were working for the CIA who left over the advance to war in Iraq? I mean, that's the interesting thing. The CIA got eviscerated by that. A lot of people left the CIA. And they came out and they've been talking about it ever since. They said, look, I left specifically because I realized that this was the wrong thing to do, and that it wasn't based on intelligence. It was based on some kind of other agenda. So I guess if we focus on the fact that on what the individuals do, I think we do better, because we end up realizing we have friends in places we didn't know we had friends. And I think that's a very powerful thing. And again, I do think independent media is the way that people can communicate. This is what I actually believe. So that we stop being perceived as monolithic. Because I'm an American doesn't mean I support those things. Because someone works for the CIA doesn't mean that they support, what the United States government does.
I just had a guest on my show that talked about the founding of the United Nations by a communist, by Alger Hiss. I've said I wouldn't have any problem with the United Nations if they used the U.S. Constitution Bill of Rights as a blueprint.
I think a lot of people would not have trouble with them if they did do that. But the interesting thing is that the United States Constitution is still a radical document. It's a very, actually the Bible's a pretty radical document. If you think about it, all men are brothers. That is a very radical statement. And I'm always surprised by how many people who are Christians don't understand. Christ said, I come not to bring peace but the sword. What he meant is, I expect you to give up your family, and I expect you to give up your friends, and I expect you to give up everything to stand behind the idea that all men are brothers. I expect you to be willing to sacrifice everything for that. I will cleave you from everything. To join me is to be cleaved away from everyone who believes that all men are not brothers. So that's a very radical thing to say. And
we're really at a very crucial time here. And I just did an article that says, after my accident, which was 8 years ago, I've been rebuilding ever since. After my accident, I thought my world had ended. But it hadn't. It had been readjusted. My realities had been readjusted. I had to reach another level of thinking, and perhaps I just had to go through that to find out what being poor was like.
I think in the United States right now, one of the things that's interesting is that we pay more for health care than everyone else on earth does, and we get less of it. And furthermore, if you look at your car payment, how much of that is actually health insurance? If you look at car insurance. Look at your house insurance. Look at business insurance. Look at workers' compensation insurance. Look at Social Security. We're paying over and over and over and over and over and over and over again for the same health care, and still most of us aren't getting it.
Well, that to me, the whole medical, pharmaceutical industry is another scam, another way to poison Americans, another way to drug Americans. My mother and grandmother went to the doctor from the time I was 6 years old. For as long as I can remember, I used to go sit in the doctor's office with my mother and grandmother. I thought they were sick. I thought they were feeble. I didn't realize what was wrong with them until I took one of my grandmother's sleeping pills. Whew! Granny, no wonder you've been stumbling around. And to me, that's what the medical industry. They don't make any money if you're well. If they want you. The food that you're eating, it doesn't have the nourishment in it that it's supposed to have. So you're dying from lack of nourishment. You're being starved to death. You little fat people out there are being starved to death by McDonald's, by Monsanto, by Archer Daniels Midland. And I don't know, I'm not quite sure. The war recently has shifted to the family farms. You can't drink raw milk anymore. Wow.
Because that's another example, actually, of something else that needs independent media. So, because the thing is a family farm and saying, look, this is a mass-produced tomato is different from one that you grow in your own garden, and here's why. And because, or people that talk about the fact that nutrients aren't there in the soil anymore because the same crops are being grown in the same fields over and over and over and over and over again.
And you can't grow hemp to replenish the soil as a rotational crop. You can't do that. Well, you might smoke that hemp,
Yeah, that would be really criminal if you were like getting high. That would just be horrible. Anyway, well, the other thing. So I just want to go sort of over the stuff that's in the book, and you can read it.
Correct.
The first thing is, if you want to publish a book, there's two ways to do it really quickly. One is lulu.com, and the other one is createspace.com. If you create a book and publish it through CreateSpace, you basically just upload a PDF file and a cover, and it's available on Amazon. Which means that you can drive traffic to it from websites and from other locations. It's basically the same distribution that any other book gets. If you put it on Lulu, putting it on CreateSpace, it'll be available, in a week to 10 days or thereabouts, usually. If you do it on, you want to publish a book instantaneously, you can pretty much go to Lulu and again just start driving traffic to it. They also do print books as well as doing ebooks. CreateSpace and Lulu will both make it easy for you to put your book onto Kindle. And the interesting thing about publishing onto Kindle is there's fewer books there. So it means that you get seen by more people. There's not as much content.
I have available. All of my books are up on Kindle. They're up on Amazon. I've got a publisher that prints them off on demand, so you can get a hard copy right straight from the printer. But, they're also trying to block me in libraries, things like that. We're working on that. We're going to get that fixed. I've got international companies that are handling that. But let's get back. Okay, I've got the books done.
So to do the film thing,
okay.
If you want to, so there's two different issues. You're in a different position from most people. If you've already got an audience, you know what the audience wants, and you can actually create a film, shoot a film that gives them the information that they want, and they can pay for it. If you want to reach a broader audience, at least you've got a place to start. You've got a sort of a core group of people that you can branch out from. If you want to create a film, you can shoot it with the Canon 5D or the Canon 7D, or you can actually shoot it with anything. If you sometimes people say, well, I can't produce because I can't afford a camera, and you just go get yourself, a mini DV camera and shoot it. If your story is important enough, people are going to care what it looks like less than they care what it has to say. We all look at grainy pictures from the 1950s and 1960s, and we watch those shows without getting upset about the fact that quality is not that good because we understand the conditions they were shot under. Well, the same is true if you're telling a story about, fracking, and all you've got is a mini DV camera, but you're showing how, all the water, 3,000, how the lake next door is filled with dead fish after the fracking. People might want to see the dead fish, and they're probably not going to care if you don't have a Canon 7D to shoot them with.
I like you mentioned fracking. I like the YouTube video of the guy lighting his faucet, the water coming out of his faucet.
But that's a perfect example. If he hadn't shot that, you wouldn't know about that.
That's right.
And he only could do it in his hometown. That footage could only be taken in his hometown with his camera, and he made it available on YouTube. But if he wanted to tell a bigger story, and he needed money to be able to support himself, he could actually shoot a bigger story and make it available for sale also through Amazon. Amazon on CreateSpace.com has you can put in the DVD and they'll turn it into DVD on demand, and they will also upload it so that it can be made video on demand, which is actually better because it means that if you're the person marketing that film, you just basically have to give people a link to it, and they can pay it $3.99, and you'll get 45% of the sale. So Lulu also lets you do that. And then there's if you really, now, in your particular case, you can actually go to distribber.com, DISTRIBBER. If you go to distribber.com, they'll give you instructions for how to get into Hulu, Netflix, Amazon, which you already.
All right, give me that website again.
DISTRIBBER.com. and they'll also put you into cable on demand, and which means that people who can see you on your cable network, they'll see you on the cable network, and they'll say type 2322 or whatever to buy. It's pay-per-view basically.
I do have almost 900 of these half-hour episodes up on YouTube right now. But I would like.
So here's the thing: when I look at your website, and again, because I like a lot of stuff. I find a lot of stuff you're saying really interesting. Like being something of a pacifist. I actually find militias, the idea of militias, pretty interesting because I think that's what people getting together to decide to do something is an interesting concept.
Now, by the way, the ADL, to slander me, they listed me in armed and dangerous for starting a militia in New Mexico. They just don't tell you that I did it in the governor's office. Governor Gary Johnson was my governor. He was my friend, and we did it.
Well, also, a well-armed militia is, that a well-armed militia is actually what you're supposed to have. So it's sort of a domestic defense thing. So I don't understand what this. It's a very strange thing. But in your particular case, when you reference Jews specifically, if you said the State of Israel, I think you could say everything you want to say without. If you say Jews, it makes it harder for you to market. Because what happens is people see that, and then they just automatically start. In other words, I could see if you go to Distributor, and they check back and they see the word Jew written on everything instead of the State of Israel written on everything. I don't know. They may decide
that does that, and that's one of the situations we have to deal with, because when we're talking about Jews, we're not talking about all Jews. I don't care what the lady next door does.
Right. My point is, that's the thing is, when I was reading through your site, it was clear that you were not talking about all Jews. And the other thing is, when I kept thinking, God, some of the people I know who are being the most effective against the State of Israel are Jews.
Well, there was Aaron Russo. I mean, he told you what the Rockefellers were going to do. He told you about the chips. They wanted to chip everybody. He did Mad as Hell, and he ain't going to take it anymore. He did a lot of
my point is that I think if you, I don't want to change what your business model is or whatever, and I don't want to change what your philosophical model is. But when I look at your website, I think if you put the word Jews off and you replace it with the State of Israel, or if you you found the word, and when you use the word banks, that's actually correct, right? In other words, if you say banks have done X, Y, and Z, that's actually demonstrably true. And whether or not some Jews happen to be owning some banks or controlling some banks is really irrelevant, because so are there also people who are Christian who are actually working with them and controlling the same banks.
That's right.
So it's inaccurate. And the thing is that inaccuracy, I think, harms you. I don't really think, actually, you have... First of all, let's just think about it. Again, it's that thing where you're trying to figure out if you're progressive or a radical.
Right.
The thing is, you support people being able to smoke pot. You want a well-regulated militia, which you founded in the governor's office. So it's not like you loathe, any form of the United States government. You're pro the Constitution, which makes you just like Ron Paul. So I mean, I'm just saying that if you really look at it, the only thing that makes you look radical, or not radical, the only thing that makes you look unsavory at all is anti-Semitic. And if you never use the word Jew again, and you just talk about the State of Israel, and you just talk about, and you also call yourself a Judeo-Christian, which does indeed imply, it's not like you're anti-Jew. You're anti.
I'm anti-New World Order. I'm anti-one world government. I want to see Americans get back to the foundation of every civilization.
Right.
That is the self-sufficient family farm.
Right. Okay. Well, so my point is that one reason I mentioned that to you is that if you're going to trying to get mass media distribution through places like Distributor, you got to be really precise in terms of your language, because a lot of the people that you're going to be working with are going to be people who are going to respond negatively to anti-Semitism, even though they would respond even though they would be anti-Rockefeller, even though they would be anti
Rothschild.
Are obviously supportive of civil rights. So I was just mentioning it because it seems to me like you actually have, the idea that people have the right to actually smoke pot. That's like pretty common these days. So you're kind of wrong. I don't want to call you Ron Polish because you definitely have your own voice, but I don't know, that it's just a very strange note. It's uncharacteristic for the rest of your site.
Ron Paul was a subscriber of mine for 10 years.
Right.
We spoke at some of these same events, and you know, to me, this whole thing, if you abolish all laws against victimless crimes, because if there's no crime, if there's no victim, there ain't no crime.
Right.
And if we did that, we would end the drug dealing, we would end the drug gangs, we would end the CIA and Mossad control over the drugs that are being brought in this country to put you out.
Well, not just that.
To put you into jail, so you can be a part of. We've got more people in jail right now than any country.
Yeah, we actually have a much higher percentage than Iran, actually. Percentage of population-wise, we have a higher percentage of prisoners than Iran. That's amazing, actually. It's like, wow. You know, in fact, we have one of the highest rates of prison population in the world. The other thing is, I just saw a thing, I think it's Virginia. There's some sort of there's some town that's basically decided that you're not allowed to text while you walk. And really, it's because they want to, I think it's the same reason that they make parking illegal in a lot of places, that for no good reason. Specifically because they need the revenue. I mean, that's the thing that's happening, is because so much of the money is going to, if you think about it, right now what happens is we pay our taxes, they go up, they get used to fund these wars and all these crazy things, and then some money gets given back for education and for domestic programs, like a very small percentage, and the states levy a small tax. If you really think about it, most of our money is going up to do some weird thing that is not not locally run. So that means that the local governments basically end up doing crazy things like making texting while you walk illegal because they're trying to generate some kind of revenue, and the only easiest way to do it is to extort it by making laws, you know. And so, I mean, it's the only reason I can think why you want to make texting while you walk illegal.
I think that might be a sort of a false flag thing there. I'm not sure that happened. But
no, I don't know. I mean, I saw it on like.
Yeah, I saw it too. Yeah,
so here's another good question. Why is it that we see these news stories and then they get published worldwide, and then whoever's writing them doesn't actually check to make sure that they're true? But I think that one might well be true because I know there's here in California you're not allowed to text while you drive, and in fact you should not don't be in your car while you're texting. Just don't. It's not a good thing. You mean $250 ticket. It's not a good thing. So anyway, distributor.com is really a good solution. If you want to have your films shown in theaters, there's a solution called Cinedigm, CINEDIGM, and basically for $1,200 per theater, you can put it into a theater for a week. It costs $1,200 to get it in, and then $60 a week, and then you get about 50% of the box office for every ticket sold. And now the only reason you would do that is if you can fill the theater. But what a lot of people do now is they do a platform release, which means you put your film into 3 or 4 or 5 theaters, and then once it's seen by that number of people, it gets rated well on Rotten Tomatoes and on IMDb. Then it's much easier to get cable channels to air you, and it's also much easier to people who see the reviews, they go, I'll go find that, and then if it's available on Amazon, they'll go watch it there. The other thing is landmark theaters. The landmark theaters there's lots of them, and you can rent them out just for a theater and drive a bunch of people there as part of a event, and then when they're done, if you've had 3 or 4 or 5 showings, then again you start looking like something that might be of interest to official cable channels. I don't want to say like HBO, but like the History Channel or something.
Now let me ask you. I've got 4 films out now. I've got the Chemtrails, the video, which has not really been improved upon with any of the. You've got no more information than I had 10 years ago. I've also got the True Face of FEMA, which I set. I filmed at the first Homeland Security meeting.
Did you really?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Colonel John Brinkerhoff was lecturing law enforcement in Albuquerque, New Mexico at Sandia Labs, and I got my photographer in and did that.
Cool.
and film that. And he says, in case of a single outbreak of smallpox in a major metropolitan area, we'll need 400,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops to control the American people, because some of them just won't follow orders. Or a nuclear disaster, or an earthquake on the New Madrid fault line, anything like that.
How depressing.
So we've got that film available right now. Matter of fact, I just found a copy of it, and I've duplicated that, and I have that available now. I haven't put that up on YouTube yet. So.
Well, the thing is, okay, here's the thing about YouTube. I think YouTube is a good place to put something if you just are being benevolent and you want people to see it. But it's not a good place to put something if you want to monetize revenue, which if you're going to be sort of a citizen journalist, you probably have to at some point. So I really think that createspace.com is probably a better solution for you. And both I think the chemtrails one and the one about chemtrails and the one about Homeland Security would both be of interest to people. And the reason is because, especially if you've got live footage from these events, because people, a lot of times, they don't appreciate, you can say a million times that you've heard someone say something, but it's not until you actually hear them say it on video that you believe it, you know? So I think that those two might do well on createspace.com. The other thing is, there are, in the book is...
Hold on just a moment.
That mainstream media won't tell you. At Truth Radio, you can listen live or listen to a large selection of archived programs.
All right, Nancy, we're out of time here. You want to give out your...
if you just go to filmfundingclub.com.
Okay, hang on a minute. Hang on. Let me get this off here.
Okay.
Okay.
Just go to filmfundingclub.com. There's step-by-step instructions on there for creating a documentary. There's a book you can download. It costs like $5. If you want it in print, it's $12. You don't have to get it, but and there's also a bunch of free books. But if you go up there and you've got a story to tell, there you'll find the tools that you need to be able to tell it, and it's way less expensive than you think. It's, in fact, except for media creation and editing, it's probably free for you to actually start producing and selling your content. And I'm really hoping that a lot of people who know things that other people don't will tell people.
All right, we've got your site linked under your name. This show will be linked. Let everybody you know about it. And I appreciate you being on there, and I'm sure I'll be back in communication with you.
Right. Well, do you want to hang on for a few minutes after the show's over to chat, or no?
Well, I have to close everything up. I'll call you back.
All right. Bye.
Come on, you son of a gun.
Call recording has been completed.